Welcome back to the West London Witch. This episode includes a story of suicide and may not be suitable for everyone. Listener discretion is strongly advised. If you've ever hiked up to the Hollywood sign in Los Angeles, California, you may have wondered why you don't actually come in front of the letters, but rather up and around the top of them. The letters themselves are completely inaccessible, fortified behind chain link and razor wire. But it wasn't always like that. In fact, as most of you may already know, the Hollywood sign itself was actually just a temporary advertisement for a new housing development in the Hollywood Hills. Back in the 1930s, the sign read Hollywood Land, and it was completely open and accessible. On the morning of September 18th, 1932, a woman began the iconic trek up to the Hollywood Land sign. Just an average day of hiking before the California heat kicked in. However, whilst on her journey, she came upon a lady's jacket, purse, and a single shoe. The jacket and the purse weren't so alarming, as people sometimes discarded items on the hike up just to collect them as they descend. But the solitary shoe was a conundrum. The woman opened the purse for a clue as to its owner. Among the tissues, lipstick, and cigarette case was a slip of paper. Scrawled across the sheet were the words, "I'm afraid. I'm a coward. I'm sorry for everything. If I had done this a long time ago, it would have saved a lot of pain." The note was signed with the initials P.E. Frantically, the woman scanned the hillside for search of P.E., yet as she looked towards the ravine below, she saw the crumpled body of a woman. She collected the jacket, shoe, and purse and placed them on the steps of the Hollywood police station. She then called the department and gave an anonymous account of her findings. The police swarmed the trails up to the Hollywood Land sign, and there they made the grisly discovery of a woman at the bottom of the hillside. For 2 days, she laid at the county coroner's office unidentified. It was apparent to the police that she had ascended the hillside, came to the H of the sign, climbed a wooden ladder that was leant against it, and jumped to her death from the top of the ladder. Her cause of death was listed as suicide, caused by multiple fractures of the pelvis. P.E.'s death and suicide note were published in the local papers, where her uncle made the terrible connection. Peg Entwistle, a beautiful 24-year-old actress who was living with her uncle in Hollywood, had told him 2 days prior that she was heading out to meet a friend. After her failure to return and seeing the initials on the note, her uncle came to the grim realization that his niece was never coming home. Millicent Lillian Entwistle, known affectionately as Peg, was a British actress who immigrated to the United States with her family in 1916, at the tender age of 8 years old. In 1925, she made her Broadway debut in a production of Hamlet. It was a tiny, uncredited role, but it led to her landing the role of Hedwig in Ibsen's The Wild Duck that same year. Peg appeared in a number of notable Broadway productions, yet in 1932, she headed west to Los Angeles, where she starred in the play Mad Hopes, opposite Humphrey Bogart. Later that same year, she made her only on-camera appearance in the motion picture 13 Women. And this is where the story sours. Peg's role was dramatically reduced in the final cut of the movie. Originally, she was on screen for 16 minutes. Yet after a failed screen test, she was only seen for 4 minutes. Her character evolves from a married woman to a lesbian who dies in a sanitarium after being left by her lover, Martha. It is suspected that her lesbian story arc was too racy, too progressive for the 1930s. This role was supposed to be Peg's ticket into the big leagues of cinema. And yet, the only reason we really talk about this movie anymore is because of Peg's demise. Although the movie flop, of course, would have added to any depression that Peg may have been experiencing, it's worth noting she also had a failed marriage that ended in divorce after only 2 years. Peg claimed that her husband was violent and cruel, beating her so savagely that he ripped the hair from her head. He also failed to mention that he had been married in the past and also had a 6-year-old son. And finally, Peg was a woman trying to make her way in Hollywood in the 1930s, deep in the throes of the Great Depression. While her life may have ended on September 16, 1932, her legacy and her ghost live on. There have been endless claims of a sad, lost, broken woman clad in 1930s garb wandering the trails of the Hollywood sign. Griffith Park rangers have seen her on foggy evenings. Runners have reported smelling the heady scent of gardenia perfume while catching a glimpse of a woman crying as she heads up the hillside. Dogs have been seen acting strangely on the trails as a woman in dated clothing mysteriously appears before them. It is said that Peg still wanders the hillside, perpetually looking out on the city and the sign that encapsulated her life's dream. If you ever find yourself making the hike up to the top of the Hollywood sign, I urge you to leave a moment to think of Peg. Hey friends, it's Becca. For the past 5 years, the West London Witch team has been dedicated to bringing you the best supernatural stories at the highest studio quality. And by team, I mean me and my buddy Danny. We do this work totally for free because we love it. We're proud of our content and appreciate the wonderful interactions we get to have with storytellers and listeners just like yourself. If you're enjoying the West London Witch, maybe consider joining our Patreon. It's a way to further engage with us and show your support for two creatives. If you're in a position to spare enough each month for us to grab a cup of coffee in between edits or add to the piggy bank for a new microphone, we would love to see you in our Patreon community. But I know times are tough, so if you're not in a position to join Patreon right now, that's okay. We aren't going anywhere. Head on over to patreon.com/The West London Witch. For as little as £1, $1, €1 a month, you can gain full access to our coven, a space where we share behind-the-scenes stories, dive deeper into each episode, answer your questions, and have special little treats to thank you for sharing your love and kindness with your favorite little witch. Hello and welcome to episode 101 of The West London Witch, a podcast where we share stories about those moments where we find ourselves very much not alone. Today, we are back with our 4th installment of Tales from the West London Witch Crypt. This has rapidly become a beloved series on our show. But if you're new here or tuning in for the very first time, it's worth noting that we are primarily a long-form narrative podcast. Each episode centers around one location, one storyteller, or one theme. However, this setup can be a little limiting for me, as I speak to loads of people who have incredible stories, but they're just not quite long enough to fill a typical 45-minute episode. For years, I collected a treasure trove of short but scary stories, but I had no way of featuring them. So, a few seasons ago, I began the Tales from the West London Witch Crypt, a space where I can dust off some of my favorite tiny, terrifying tales. These stories are from all over the world, shared by different storytellers, set in different locations, and are not connected in any way. I hope you enjoy this continued anthology of boo moments. I'm Rebecca Strazina, and this is the West London Witch, episode 101, Tales from the West London Witch Crypt, part 4. Chapter 1, The Road Between Two Worlds.
So my story takes place in very northeast Ohio, Ashtabula, North Kingsville very specifically, and the year was 2012 or 2013. For anyone who knows very northeast Ohio, which probably isn't many people, but it's like Ashtabula is kind of like a town, but it is also pretty rural, and where the story takes place was a 2-lane road, like a 45-mile-per-hour 2-lane skinny winding road where there are houses, but mostly it's trees and curves and things like that. Right along Lake Erie, actually. Me and one of my best friends who lived in that area were both home. It was summertime. What we always did is we would meet up at like Taco Bell and we would just get food and then stay in his car and talk for hours about whatever. He had huge aspirations to be a musician, and we'd talk about life and goals and things like that. And then we would just drive back super late, and he lived like 2 minutes from my house, so I would just drop him off or he would drop me off. On this particular night, I was driving. It was super late. We just got done with that experience, and I used to be up front. We're sober. There was nothing besides Taco Bell going in our system, which might be worse than anything else we could have put in it, but that is what we did. But it was also a joyous time. Like there was no ill will. There was no negative feelings. Like we were laughing, talking. So as I'm driving him home and we're on the highway or that 2-lane rural road and it's late, there's no other cars around, and I come to a stop because I see in the middle of the road this dead possum, which isn't rare. It's not all that shocking, but I see the possum, so I have to come to almost to a stop, go around it, driving, talking, and around this time is when I specifically remember the song Iris came on by the Goo Goo Dolls. It's all I think about now when the song comes on, and so I crank it up because we're both 90s kids. We love the song. We're singing along to it, and as it's going on, I see another animal on the road, and this time it's 2 dead possums. So I slow down again, and I think we kind of have this moment of like, that's weird that we're seeing all these dead possums, but it's it's whatever. Just again go around it, start picking back up to 45 miles per hour, and at this point we are uncomfortably close to our houses, and I'm kind of on alert. I wasn't thinking about this then, but looking back now, I'd already had to stop my Jeep twice because I had seen roadkill, so I was kind of already on alert to like the surroundings. And from the left side of the 2-lane road, I see something moving and coming at us, and my initial thought was a cat. And then as we got closer, it was definitely too big. And so I'm like, okay, there's a deer. I'm like, now I definitely got to be on high alert because I'm not trying to crash my Jeep. And so I start slowing my Jeep down. And then as it turns in front of us, it crosses the road in front of us. And it's just so clearly something that me and my friend had never seen before. It was like completely shapeless, pitch black. And there were two things about it that really stood out to me. Was the way that like it was crawling on all fours, like it just felt irregular, and I can still like picture like the way the shoulders were moving, like it just looked almost like if a human was walking on all fours, where it just didn't look right, didn't look natural. And it also had its head turned to us, and so I'm seeing this head, and to us it didn't feel like it was looking at my Jeep, like it truly felt like it was looking at us. And it was just these like reddish orange eyes. And this is all happening in like half a second. It just like flies across the road. And I remember braking and kind of like twisting to the right. The music was off. We didn't say anything, but there was no time to be like, what was that? What do you think that was? Was that scary? Did that freak you out? And so we're just silent. I look at him, and we both are on the verge of tears without any spoken word. Just the feeling that this thing gave us, it was just so disturbing. It was so unsettling that we went from like singing, laughing, having fun to just like literally about to cry. And so I pull there's still no cars around, and I pull my Jeep up a little bit, and it is this tiny, tiny, random little graveyard that is just, it's seriously randomly on this road, and we've explored it since. And there's like maybe 9 graves there. Like, I don't know if it was a family graveyard or what it was. And my friend lived like a minute away from this spot, and I just remember him saying like, please don't take me home yet. So I drove past his house, and we did a lap, and we looked, and it was like 3:07 or something like that. So it was like right around the witching hour. So we did a lap and went on like 193 down 20 and then back to his house. And I'm not a religious person at all, but when he got out of the Jeep, he was like, hey, I'm going to pray for you tonight. And it was just like, thank you. Like, I needed to hear something like that. I've never been so disturbed by something like that before. And what matters a lot to me is that there was no communication, because it's so easy for someone to be like, hey, that was scary, what do you think? And then all of a sudden you have the confirmation bias. It was just no words, looked at each other. I could see the tears welling up in his eyes, and just absolute fear, just like unable to process what this thing was that crossed in front of us. And I know at the time we thought maybe it was an alien. Since then, I looked way more into skinwalkers and things like that, which are not native to Ohio, even though there is like Native American population in Ohio, but that's obviously more of a Navajo, southwestern type of a thing. It felt like something passing by. It felt like something that just like, it was like wrong place, wrong time. Like it just happened to be going past this as we happened to be going past that road. And either it used that cemetery that night, or it was just coincidental. I don't know, but it was, thankfully I've never seen anything like that since.
Chapter 2. The Shadow from Beneath.
I once lived in a cemetery with my mum and my sister. My mum was friends with the caretaker. And at that time, it was 1988. So a lot of the cemeteries did have actual caretakers that lived in houses in the cemeteries. So we had lived with him for about 3 months.
This is Nikki. Due to a change in circumstances, Nikki, her sister, and her mother moved into the caretaker's home at the local cemetery, while her mom searched for permanent accommodation. The girls were little and treated the cemetery as their personal playground, dancing, frolicking, and playing make-believe among the tombstones. It was a happy time for the girls. But some of the locals were not quite comfortable seeing 2 children playing in the graveyard.
Well, there was some complaints from people that had buried their family. There was just like a lot of phone calls going on why is there 2 children sort of residing at the cemetery? Why are they like running around my husband's grave or so and so? So the Sun, it was called, they reached out to my mum just to interview her and find out a bit more information on what was the background of what we were doing there.
The Sun newspaper actually came to the site to speak to Nikki's mom and photograph the two girls rollicking among the graves. It's a darling photo. Two tiny children, hand in hand, bounding between the grave markers. This was a special time for Nikki, and she holds that space close in her heart. But there were a few signs that perhaps Nikki was sensitive to her surroundings. However, that became abundantly more apparent as Nikki grew older.
I was about 6 years old, and my mum had taken me to one of her friends' houses up in a rural town called Tongala, which is in Victoria, Australia. So we arrived there, and it was a house that was built on stilts. So it was an older house. So I was inside, and next door there was a primary school that was empty. It was about 6 or 7 o'clock at night, which becomes quite dark. And I remember looking out the window because the primary school had some tyres on the floor that were painted different colours. And I loved these. I thought they were amazing. As I was standing at the window, something had come out from underneath the house. And I'll never forget a figure that come out dressed in all black. I'm not sure if it was a man or a woman, but just dressed from head to toe in what I can only say as a black cloak and some sort of a really, really weird hat. Now, I froze. I didn't know what to do. I was only really, really young. And this figure had come out of the house, walked right on the side very, very slowly to make sure that it was seen as I was standing at that window. It did not put its head up. It stared down. It put its head down. I looked at it. It did not look at me, but it moved really, really slowly and just disappeared. And I just lost it. I absolutely screamed. My mum and her friends come running into the room. I'll never forget it. I could not settle down. I couldn't get my words out right. I was just really inconsolable. Now, this is something that has stuck with me throughout my life. So, look, even though I was young, I don't know what was going on. It's something that's really, really stuck into my memory.
Today, Nikki is a paranormal researcher and attributes her interest in the supernatural to that very first sighting of the shadow that crawled out from beneath the house. Chapter 3. The Lady in Black.
Old Appalachians believed that there were spirits everywhere and hanks. The Lady in Black is supposed to be a protective spirit. She's often seen keeping men in line, stopping drunk drivers or people driving too fast. And in 1902, there were several accounts all across Virginia reported in the newspaper that there were sightings of the Lady in Black. The Lady in Black is supposed to be dressed in all black, and she has a black veil. And when I was going to visit my grandmother's home place, when she was little, she lived way back up on a mountain, maybe a mile into a road that goes up to nowhere. And I had planned on going up there by myself, which is pretty dangerous because, you know, there's all kinds of animals and things that can happen to you and you don't have cell service. And the night before I was going to go, I had a dream that I was up there at my grandmother's home place where there's also a cemetery. And the Lady in Black walked out of the woods and pointed like she was pointing for me to go back.
In hindsight, this should have been a clear sign to Brittany not to head to her grandmother's house. At least, not alone. But you can't just put your life on hold because of a creepy nightmare.
Then the next day, I was on my way to the home place because I didn't really think much about it. And I got in a wreck.
Standing on the side of the road, looking at her smashed car, Brittany took a second to think a little bit more about the visitation from the lady in black in her dream the night before.
And I thought that was interesting that the lore also talks about her and keeping people from wrecking and stuff like that. I don't know. I kind of took it as maybe I shouldn't be going up there. Something worse might happen.
With the choice of either continuing to her grandmother's house or heading back down the mountain, Brittany decided to heed the lady in black's warning before any other harm could befall her. Chapter 4. In the Ghost Light.
So I went to the University of Akron, and I got my bachelor's degree in theater, and that was a whole bag of worms. But something I had to do was stage manage, and I got to stage manage a play. I think it was a Shakespeare play. I want to say Much Ado About Nothing. I can't remember exactly what it was, but the stage that it was a black box. It's a big black box, painted all black, lights on top, and you kind of can arrange the crowd however you want to be. We didn't have bleachers up yet. It was really just a flat stage with a couple tables. They say this theater's been haunted for a long time. Like, all the kids that went there would say this theater was haunted. They said it was haunted by one of the founders of the school or something along those lines, or one of the modern like people who put a lot of budget into the school. And I never really believed it until there was one night after we did a rehearsal. I decided I wanted to stay a little bit later after everyone had left. So I told the director, I was like, hey, Terry, I'm going to stay for like 20, 30 minutes and do some paperwork that I need to turn in anyway. And he's like, oh, that's fine, Charlie. Sure. I had this whole big ring of keys. It was like Filch from Harry Potter, like his ring of keys. So I'm doing some paperwork. Everyone's cleared out at this point. And I do want to stop and preface here a little bit. There are two mannequins we were using for blocking in the corner of the room. And the corner of the room, that's where the light switch was. It wasn't like by the door to leave. It was in the corner of the room. So you had to plug in the ghost light in the black box and then turn the lights off in order to leave safely, because there's no other way to get the lights. And there's also, along that same wall, there's these giant doors. They're like a story long, a story high, and then like a story wide. They're huge. They're for bringing in set pieces. So I'm doing some paperwork, and not even 5 minutes in, I have my music on, earphones in, and I get this like feeling. I knew someone was upstairs in the balcony, just like staring daggers into the back of my head. And I decide, I'm going to go home. It's not worth it. I'm going to go home. It was really creeping me out. As I get up, I start packing up. It just gets more intense. I can feel something in my chest. It's just like malice. I could feel something targeting. I'm like, oh God. And no one else is there. I know no one else is there. It's late. It's like 12:30 at night. So I pack up. I throw my backpack on my back. And thankfully the ghost light was in the middle of the room. All I had to do was plug it in. So I plugged it in. I hit the lights. And as soon as it gets dark, it just intensifies. It's 10 times worse. So I quickly walk to the room, keys in hand, because I pulled out my giant janitor keys. Keys in hand, it's jingling, I'm walking. I open those giant doors, I'm in the first chamber, and I feel almost a push or a tug or something on my backpack. So I tug and I go to the second set of doors. And I slam those shut. And as I'm slamming them shut, I see in the light of the ghost light, those two mannequins that were against the wall, they're in the middle of the room. They're standing there. So I shut this giant door, this huge 10 feet door, and I put the keys in. And as I'm trying to lock it, it's pulling against it. And I could feel the doors tugging against the locking, and as I finally get it to lock, it stops. So I walk out of the building, and I call my wife as I get in the car, and I go, Steph, I never want to be in that fucking building alone again.
That concludes today's collection of tales from the West London Witch Crypt. Chapter 1, The Road Between Worlds, came to us from Tyler, the co-host of the Believing in the Bizarre podcast. Chapter 2, The Shadow from Beneath, was shared by Nikki, a Melbourne-based paranormal researcher. To see more of Nikki's work, head on over to paranormal_pieces on Instagram. Chapter 3, The Lady in Black, was told by Brittany, a historian and storyteller. To hear more folklore and tales from the Appalachian Mountains, check out Appalachian_Bluebird on all the socials. Chapter 4, In the Ghostlight, came to us from the other half of the Believing in the Bizarre podcast, Charlie. Make sure to check out Believing in the Bizarre for more paranormal stories, conspiracies, urban legends, and cryptid tales wherever you listen to podcasts. If you have your own boo moment you'd like to share on the show, please feel free to reach out to me at thewestlondonwitch@gmail.com or come and find us on Instagram and Facebook. Do you have a spooky story you'd like to share? I'd love to hear it. Drop me an email at thewestlondonwitch@gmail.com or find us on Instagram and Facebook at The West London Witch. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. And come and follow us for additional content on Instagram and Facebook. Until next time, merry meet, merry part, and merry meet again. The West London Witch is created by me, Rebecca Strazina. Our sound designer and production magician is the incredible Danny Cross. Our theme music was bespokely written and performed by the wickedly talented Kyle Hall. Our cover art is the beautiful collaboration between Lizzie Wilson and Jake Bowser. Special thanks to Miss Sinead Bowers, our quality control and biggest cheerleader. And thank you to you, all of our listeners all over the world. These are your stories. Thank you for sharing them with us.